Welcome, folks, to the 2024 February 14th Aries Working Group call. Happy Valentine's Day. Um,
Thanks, Ben.
so you're welcome, Alex. The um, Here's our agenda link in the chat, um, and yes, this is Hyperledger call, and so the antitrust policy and the code of conduct are in effect. Links are in the agenda link in the chat. I didn't really update this list from last time, and so it may be a little inaccurate. I forgot to change that when I was copying the agenda from last time. So Alex is here. I don't see Steve yet, but anyone else is welcome to add themselves to this. As a reminder, we don't have live edits turned on right now. Um, on the wiki, they're looking to resolve some stability crashy issues with the Confluence wiki that Hyperledger runs prior to turning that back on. So you can make changes and they will be merged and will show up, but won't show up live on my screen. Um, any um, one would anyone like to introduce themselves? Yeah, I recognize everybody. I'm glad everyone's here. Announcements. So this happened already. That was tomorrow from last week. I caught most of it. I had some conflicts for some of it, but they talked about a lot of general stuff and then had some demo stuff, and was overall a great presentation. Anyone want to make any comments or correct anything that I've shared about that? Does anyone know if that was recorded and if we have a link for that? I think it was, and I think that was intended to be posted to YouTube, but I have not hunted down the link. All right. Okay. The next thing is the annual review presentation of the TOC. I'll talk about that in a minute. We've got links and info and stuff, and would encourage attendance there, and that's tomorrow. That would be a great way to answer questions and review things and everything else in discussion tomorrow. This is an annual review. It's in place of our regular quarterly review, but intended to be far more in depth as a periodic review for these projects. Do any projects or any code bases or projects within Aries want to share status updates or work progress? All right, there's good stuff going on, which is awesome. Here's what I wanted to, or what I had put on the agenda today, and in absence of requests from community members, I wanted to again highlight the examples of use testimonials, review the details about the annual report update, and then I wanted to recover our discussions of AIP Next. This has been a while since we've talked about this. There's been a large number of important topics in between, and I'm not sure I have the most recent notes out of previous agendas. And so, but this is what I was able to pull, and I'd love to talk about some things that are different now that we've made some of the progress that we have in the last couple of months, and talk about the possibilities for targeting that. And then, if we've got some time, some open discussion. Any adjustments, changes, additions, removals, rearrangements that we want to make to the agenda before we keep going? All right. Um, uh, Alex, should I cover the testimonials, or would you like to?
I'll just say, just a 10-second reminder, our host aside, there's still an opportunity for everybody else on the call to just to complete this and give us, should take literally 3 minutes, and you can post something anonymously, so you don't have to worry about approval processes if they can cause problems at your end, but just to have any kind of like support testimonials towards areas that we can use to build community interest and using a couple of like the wiki pages and so forth. promote the good work being done. So please have a look at that form if you haven't already. And any questions, reach out. But hopefully it's like a very quick thing to do. And again, you can have your name and org, or it can just be no name. It could just be the type of organization even. So we can keep it quite general if that's an issue. More important to us is to get some testimonials. So have a look and let myself or Helen know any questions.
Thank you, Alex. And heavily encourage that. This is something, because of the lightness of what we're saying here, this is something that should be easy for all of us to contribute to. And I appreciate the work done to make that so. So if you have not yet, please go and contribute to that effort. On the annual report, Stephen is not here today. He had a conflict. And so here are the details. The annual report for Aries is here at a pull request. And that's the current form of it. It's been in other places in the past, but this is the new current one. Feedback needs to be done at this point by a comment on the pull request itself. So you can add comments, and then Stephen will address them. This is being presented tomorrow, and so the deadline for suggestions or additions is closing quite rapidly. I ought to have that done tonight at the latest, so that Stephen can take a look at that. It is being discussed tomorrow at the TOC, Hyperledger TOC meeting, and that is the 15th from 7 to 8 Pacific time. So it's rather early, but well, it depends on where you are, I guess. But like this will be 6 a.m. my time, but we would love some attendance, as many people as can make it. It might be interesting for you to observe the TOC and the reports to Hyperledger, but that information is there tomorrow. And so it's 2 hours if I have the calendar right, it's 2 hours. No, it isn't either, and I had my time zone wrong. It's the same time as this meeting tomorrow, because it's 7 a.m. and it's 7:13 right now in Pacific time. So same time as this meeting tomorrow is when that report is held. Here's the Zoom link to make that happen, and then that's where it's being discussed. There's also Steve has also prepared the annual reports for Anon-Creds and Indy. Those are also here if you're interested in those sister projects to Aries, and there's similar information in pull request there, and I believe that all three of these will be presented tomorrow, and so during that meeting. The whole meeting will not be about Aries, but it will include Aries, and this is the first time they've done this, the annual report in this style, but it has been suggested that there may be some additional discussion beyond what usually happens for a quarterly report. Any questions about the annual report here? All right. Thanks in Stephen's absence for his work in making that happen, and let's go support him tomorrow at the meeting. All right, the next topic that I have that I picked was a renewal, a revisit after many months of the next AIP. And this is a capture from the previous, I'm not sure it's the latest one that we've talked about, but a previous discussion about what would be included. We also have this proposed note here to talk about what's actually included. And so as the base requirements and everything else. And so this is likely to be more updated than the previous ones. And there is some discussion on here. And so that's listed here. There's also a discussion of DID methods. You'll notice this is dated now with DID Peer 4. And DID carry is not a thing, but DID WebS might be offered in its place for that. So there's some updates there. So I wanted to open up this for general comment about the focus or other things that might be important to sort of revisit in this process. And we have not proposed a date for the next AIP, but following the coordinated update in order to remove unqualified DIDs, that is certainly one of those things that needed to happen in preparation for this. one of the main things here as a requirement for this next AIP is in fact DIDCOM v2, which then includes the various core features that includes, and then this supersedes a handful of previous ones that was really the DIDCOM v1 versions of all these RFCs, etc. And so there's also some discussions about updated credential exchange protocols, which may need a revisit. There was some work that produced protocols in anticipation of DIDCOM v2, but they may need to revisit given sort of things we've learned since then and everything else before we actually tag it to one of these. And so let's see, I think that has been taken care of. There's so did peer method 4 is the one that needs to be here. In legacy peer, we killed because it was a dumb idea. And so we have that cleaned up. And then the anon-creds is indie is still, I think, quite relevant here. And then push notifications would be something, as an optional target for those agents that are actually related mobile agents and mediators. But push notifications is a really useful feature here. We haven't talked about OCA in a while, or how these things might actually impact UX. That would be an interesting thing to visit, to understand the status of, and to be able to leverage as part of that effort. I'm sure there's discussions that have been had, but just not in this particular meeting or in relation to AIP Next, as we've discussed here. So that's my brief overview of where we've been, and then covering what's here. There are some comments here that folks have left. These are much earlier. It's actually started. Some of these comments were left in 2022, so it's been a while since we've talked about this quite in earnest. But I think we're getting quite close with a lot of the progress that we've made. We had also long discussions, for example, about the process and the emergence of Open Wallet, and the possible future of all of that, etc. And so there was a lot of other discussions that happened since then that occupied quite a lot of our time. So yes, that's my brief review. I'm looking for any comments or thoughts that anyone has on content or timing or anything related to AIP Next.
Sam, I had a question, and maybe know if there are any thoughts on it. Is we support auto accept of different exchanges and connections. Is there any thoughts on putting any policies on those autos?
We've never talked about putting one in an AIP. We could document as a community guidance around those sorts of things, to kind of indicate what should happen, etc. And have some discussion that could guide implementations on that. One of the topics that I'm sure will incite some controversy is the right time to accept a credential, whether just accepting a credential and then having the user later understand and review and decide if they want to keep it, or if the user should actually be involved in the process such to the point where they can reject it before it's been officially issued, for example. And we've had some conversation about that before, but that would be a great conversation to have, I think, and can still land the RFCs that we create and also can reference inside of AIPs don't have to be ones that are protocol based or data format based in nature. They can be guidance on user experience and things. And so we haven't discussed that, but I think we could as a possible topic.
Yeah, the other thing which was like right now, for example, if it's auto, then everything is an auto, right? So I was more thinking in terms of a policy which said, okay, if it is, for example, issued by a particular issuer, it's okay to do auto, but others don't. Especially becomes interesting when you look at a wallet which is used not only between a government and a citizen, but for other use cases.
Tim, is your comment related to this? If so, go ahead and dive right in.
Sort of, yeah. I know AIP has profile in the word, but I think this sort of hits at these sort of auto accept those kinds of things hit at the other sense of profile, which is emerging elsewhere, which is extremely opinionated. You shall do things this way exactly. I mean, AIP profiles, supports many different credentials, many different ways of doing things. But the profiles that are sort of emerging elsewhere, especially in the EU, are very precisely spec'd. And there, to me, there's a difference between the two. So I don't know, AIP is sufficient. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say about that, but anyway, there seems to be two concepts what a profile is floating around a little bit. The original AIP concept, and then these specific profiles like dip and things like that, or even DIPCOM wacky or things like that, which would then have these, I would think, be very precise about what auto accept and all these other aspects are, but perhaps not.
Certainly, and we get to decide as a community how specific we want AIP to be. The purpose, right, is to help us to target things that can provide a common interoperable or a common development target for interoperable behavior between separate code projects. And so
I don't think AIP should be that specific. I'm not asking for that. I mean, that wouldn't be right. I'm just, I mean, some of these things, some of these decisions border on that. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that asserting that maybe we shouldn't decide it all the way down there is a great discussion to have, right? And you're suggesting that maybe we don't get that specific about it, so that we have the have the more general features of sort of a wider open.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is good. I'm trying to figure out how to serialize this into the notes here. Even if we don't include it actually as an AIP, there's nothing wrong with a proposal of specific types of policy behavior for auto acceptance practices as just an RFC. Like that would be, I think, something that we could create, and then we could argue whether it should be included in the AIP or not. But serializing in those suggestions, I think, is definitely something that can happen anyway, which would be good there. I was looking at the way that we had written this previously, and we have the base requirements. We had discussed doing this. The last AIP2 has optional targets. So there's base requirements, and it's actually relatively thin, and then there's optional requirements, which in some ways I think was really quite good, in the sense that there's some mediator stuff that wouldn't really apply to anyone who wasn't a mediator or didn't use a mediator, and so there's some aspects of that where the targets are useful there. Some of the other ones, like different credential types, seem to be targeted or a little bit less useful, and that may or may not influence and other factors whether we actually include those again in the forward one. But here's kind of how we had actually put that together. Whether you're supporting LD creds or BBS plus based credentials or Indie creds, missing from here could be open badges, which is LD based, but has some additional stuff on it. And there could be some other targets as well as desired, by folks that want to produce that in their software and end up interoperable with other folks in the community. And so there's definitely some some aspects to that. Not yet listed here is the yet listed here is the anything to do with either push notifications or anything about OCA, overlay capture architecture overlays that may improve user experience. Also not mentioned here is any of the governance mechanisms that exist that may be used, and so those are topics for that we may or may not want to include. And again, we get to decide the scope and the specificity of what we produce here. But I wanted to surface this again just to kind of see what people thought, and I love that we've discussed a possibility for inclusion here. Other thoughts or suggestions about this process?
Is Please Act completely out?
It might be. I'd have to look and see. And again, no decisions have been made, so arguments can be presented anyway. The part of Please Act was very problematic in the sense that it was never implemented in the very specific nature of things. And then in the general case, it was okay, but the RFC that mentioned Please Act, had some like deeper details that were never adopted and were difficult to do and were difficult to adopt. And so that came up in we changed the status of a handful of RFCs in a previous meeting, and that was one of the ones that we had discussed and changed.
Yeah, the only suggestion would be is there any implementation of that RFC that makes sense to implement, brings some value to the protocols?
Can you say more on that?
I was trying to read and understand, and I know we hit some roadblocks, but what I was just thinking is that is there a subset of it? I know in certain use cases, from what I understood, it became complicated how to implement it. But are there use cases where it can be implemented?
I think it still can be implemented by
So
anyone who wants to.
yeah, especially if I don't know what you're thinking in terms of push notifications. To me, both of them are somewhere connected, if I may use that word.
I think they may be connected in vague concept, but push notifications themselves deals very specifically with sending a message to a mobile device using the some mechanism, often one provided by the platform, to then alert either the user or the application that there's stuff available to use. And so the Please Act is more about the user, sort of high level application level user or app talking to app, in the sense that signaling that a message has been received by the other side, where push notifications is about signaling between typically a mediator and a mobile device that there is a message waiting at the mediator to be picked up.
Yeah, I understand, but ultimately the goal of both of them is to improve some type of user experience.
Yes, I think that's true.
Right. So I'm thinking more from that perspective. Basically it is to inform the peer parties about what's happening, which you may not be aware of, or which may not naturally not come to you. So either I'm using notifications or I'm doing some acknowledgement between agents, ultimately to help the peer gain some insight of what's happening. So that's where I mean it's kind of ultimate. I shouldn't use the word ultimate, but the goal being improving the user experience.
Yes, I think they both fall into that category. So what was your idea or suggestion?
That can we do something to improve the user experience which does not get addressed by push notifications using Please Act.
So this might be protocols. This might be in the wrong spot in my notes, but to improve user experience, right? So specifically focused on improving user experience, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think
that's
that's great.
that's the point. Yeah.
And I'm going to bring this up here. One of the things there that is the overlay capture architecture was designed to be able to present credentials with additional information, including like language translations, right? Use it for internationalization. But this is one of those things that I would love to see more discussion of because of the impact that it can happen. This isn't exactly protocol. It's really more about metadata, but I think it still applies super, pretty high to improving that user experience as applies there.
Yeah, I think OCA, push notification, Please Act, all of these in some ways are directed towards improving the user experience.
I agree. I'm going to group this a little bit. Excellent. Other comments or thoughts? We're a mostly quiet crowd today. Any other topics that folks want to discuss here under open discussion? Anything that you'd like to bring up, even if you don't have answers but only questions? Rampant agreement. All right. Well, I propose then that we end early and get about the other things that we have going on. Another reminder to, if possible, to attend the TOC meeting tomorrow with the event information here. Same time, different channel, and in that way we can help represent the project and the progress that we've made. Please, if you have not yet already, add a testimonial to the form here, and then be thinking about the other aspects of what we might want to be pursuing after we accomplish the community coordinated update for deprecating unqualified DIDs. Moving on to what this next target should be that we can offer. I think it will be a valuable discussion there. And of course, if you have any discussions on things that you would like to present, demo, ask, lead a discussion on, have someone else lead a discussion on, or anything else, please reach out, and I'd be happy to work that into the agenda in a future meeting. Any other topics that folks have come up with in my talking? All right then. I appreciate your involvement today, and I hope everyone has a great week. And we will see you in other places and here next week and tomorrow at the TOC call. I appreciate everybody, and I hope your week is a great one.
Great,
Thank you,
thank you.
sir.